20%. I don't have data for Malaysia, I don't have data for other parts of the world. Meaning that the Kaufman Foundation, if you care to look up Kaufman Foundation, they came out with a report last year. They said that you can close all the VC companies in the US, but entrepreneurs activity and development will continue. I think that's a bit extreme, but what I'm trying to say here is that commercialization of research, startup company ecosystem can occur even if you don't have venture capital. Even if you don't have venture capital. But it is good to have venture capital as a complementary to the whole ecosystem. Okay? Because we must be aware that, for example, the point that is made just now, there is venture capital and there is venture capital. If we are talking about private venture capital, which are driven by exit, and actually the remuneration of the general partners are actually driven by the carry, meaning that they must invest in the company that they will believe will give them the highest amount of returns, which the general partner will take a share on. It is the most purest exhibition of capitalism. Okay? Meaning, venture capital in its pure model is mainly about what is the money that I can make as a general partner, if I want to summarize that. But from a policy perspective, there are two issues we have to consider. One, how do we create an environment where private venture capital will thrive? Two, is there a need for a government-backed VC? Okay? Because government-backed VC and a private VC have slightly different agenda. Slightly different. Now, in the US, again, a lot of people look at the US, so I keep referring to the US. Actually, the government of the US has a lot of financing options. A lot of financing options. You know, of course, the problem is sometimes you only look at the VC. The SBIR has been in operation for many, many years. And the SBIR has grants as well as programs with match their grant and their venture capital. The venture capitalists from the private sector. Okay, so let's move on. I'll talk about the loans later. So the challenge here is that when you want to do commercialization, sorry, yeah, this question.
The similar question is extending on that previous deliberation. Does it say like I think even PVC's transition as well, earlier in the public sector, there are some open land, right? The private funding. Does it mean that distribution could set up on a private funding basis and basically how that let's say policy there may require state intervention? If not, are there any dual cases world over with regard to success ratio?
For what?
Private funded VCs operating.
Okay. No, as I mentioned just now, for purely private venture capital undertaking, okay, it is mainly driven by returns. In fact, actually, that's the most important criteria. What is your return to the capital that you have invested? Okay.
Equity.
Huh?
Equity.
Yeah, equity, return on equity. So, where in developing markets, sometimes it is very difficult for pure 40% of the companies are 10 years and older. What does that mean? What that means is that the VC that has invested in those companies, they would have died standing because the company did not go for exit, or they would have exited as a loss. So what I'm trying to say here is that VC is an instrument which play a role, but for it to play an effective role, there have to be other conditions in the market that will enable them to play their full role. Private VC. Now, government VC has different role, and actually, to be very specific, maybe we shouldn't call it VC. But you all understand when we say government VC. Government VC is a VC company formed by the government to do early stage investment, but have other consideration besides return on investment. Yes. 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 Now, foundations are different modalities. They don't invest for, if you're talking about Gates Foundation, they don't invest in companies for profit. That is more for other considerations. And I think those are probably outside the scope of our commercialization discussion. Okay, I'll just move on before I address the issue of the loan. Okay, then in ecosystem which are which is still developing, we will have banks. Of course, banks are normal sources of fund for projects. But even today in Malaysia, and I'm sure in many parts of the world, banks are generally risk averse. And they have no choice, because that's what the Banking Act will ask them to do. Sometimes we have policymakers asking, why can't bank loan without collateral? Okay, but that would be going against the spirit of the bank. Okay, let's not talk about Islamic bank or the non-conventional bank. Let's talk about just conventional banks. So if you want to form a company, you go to the bank, the first thing they will say is that, that's your collateral, right? That's the normal thing. So when we were doing, in 20 years ago, we also have banks, and we thought that banks can do commercialization research, but this doesn't work. It's going to be a tough task. It goes against the grain. It goes against the grain of the banker's training to give you money without collateral. That's why when you are rich, they give you money without asking. When you're poor, you ask for money and they don't give you. that's a truth about it. So what happened was that we were saying that no, we can't create a commercialization ecosystem only on venture capital model. Okay, we must look at other things. Because when I was doing commercialization in 1993, I went to a university. This was 20 years ago. And the Vice Chancellor said to me, Khalil, why are you talking about commercialization of research? We do research to expand the frontier of knowledge. Okay? You now coming to me to say that you want to make money from research. I have been doing research all my years, and my philosophy in life is to expand the frontier of knowledge. And now you are telling me that you want to do commercialization, and you want to pay these lecturers. What will happen to my lecturers in sociology who don't have products to commercialize? What will happen to my research lecturers, professors in, let's say, if it is in Egypt, theology? Okay, what happened to my lecturers in geography? I mean, these are questions that the Vice Chancellors asked. I'm talking about 20 years ago. Maybe now it's a different thing. So, when we want to talk about commercialization, actually, bringing the product to the market is actually already at the tail end of policy making, already at the tail end. Because before we even talk to universities about commercialization, we have to address the beginning at the very top level of technology transfer has to be agreed upon at the most senior level. See, technology transfer continuum, you have two sides, right? Traditionally, especially for us, I'm not sure about Egypt, but Sri Lanka is a Commonwealth country, right? Traditionally, technology is developed, it is transferred to the public pro bono. is how Malaysian rubber industry developed. The Rubber Research Institute developed all the research, developed all the clones, developed all the agronomy practices, and then they will train the agronomy extension officers that you will be familiar with, and this agronomy extension or agriculture extension officer, the same, I'm sure it's the same title in Sri Lanka and in Malaysia. They will go and talk to the smallholders. They will tell them what clones to use, how to plant the clones, what are the agronomic practice, when to, the soil and what have you. This is the traditional technology transfer, pro bono. And this is what, when the Vice Chancellor said, I do research to expand the frontier of knowledge. Correct? But on the other hand, on the right hand of the continuum, you have technology transfer, which is done for a fee. Okay? It could be licensed, it could be to a startup, it could be creation of companies, it could be many, many things, but there is a fee to it. So when we want to talk about commercialization of product from the lab to the private sector, that is already at the tail end of the policy making. The tail end. The beginning is to have this idea of technology transfer and commercialization to be adopted at all levels across the ecosystem. What do I mean by it? I mean is that when I was doing commercialization 20 years ago, I go to a particular institution, some management will like the idea, some do not like the idea. Okay? So some say I do research for this, research for that. Some say that, I don't want to do commercial transaction, I just want to do pro bono. But whatever. The issue is that when we want to talk about commercialization of research, when we talk about ecosystem, at the beginning, for example, if you want to go to the highest level, the cabinet say, we must have this understanding that this is what we're going to do. We are going to do commercialization of research, but we have to define what do we mean. Because we are talking about public sector commercialization, we must never be blinded by the fact that everything has to be with a fee. Okay? Why? I'll give you an example. About 10 years ago, maybe more than 10 years ago, the Forest Research Institute of Malaysia did a very small research. It cost about maybe $100,000 US dollars on the conversion of the rubber wood to be used as a furniture. Meaning, rubber wood has a lot of resin. There are many things in the rubber wood that does not allow it to be used as a furniture. But with this small research, Forest Research Institute developed a process to turn the waste rubber wood into a furniture wood. Meaning that you can now use rubber when you replant, the rubber wood can be used as furniture. Now, if you want to use the extreme right hand model of the continuum, where all technologies from the public sector is transferred on arm's length commercial basis, what would be the model? Okay, the model would be you will then want to either give it to an existing company or create new companies, right? That is the model. Meaning that, okay, I have done this research, I now going to do commercialization, and what is the model available for me? Either I license it, to a company, exclusive, or I license to a few companies. You cannot license to the industries, right? Or I create new companies. No, but fortunately, FRIM did not do that. Forest Research Institute did commercialization is not only about high tech. I think we have to be careful here, because sometimes when we talk about commercialization, we talk about venture capital. By definition, venture capital is high technology. But we are developing countries, and when we want to transfer product from the lab to the market, sometimes the recipient would be poor farmers. Sometimes the recipient, I was talking to somebody in Egypt, would be, let's say, the handicapped, right? So we must have a policy document that provides for a range of initiatives, so that sometimes universities or research institutes can transfer the technology pro bono, or it can go all the way to being a commercial transaction. Okay. So now, if you look at the page now, these are the two companies, the two options that your potential client. Okay, your potential client for public sector research result is one, companies already in the market. Two, companies that will be created to commercialize, right? That basically the higher level options. So if you look at these two options, what would be their respective pains? This one and this one, they have different pains, which need policy, which need a set of policy to address their pains. Now, if you were to look at existing companies, meaning when we were formed 20 years ago, Malaysia had a lot of large companies, GLC, government-linked companies. I'm sure Egypt and Sri Lanka has that also. So we have these very noble ideas that, you know, they are government companies, they should commercialize public sector research, right? That's quite normal, right? You would think, you know, Telecom Sri Lanka, Telecom Egypt, you are a government agency, why don't you commercialize telecom-related research developed by, say, whatever universities in Sri Lanka? That's what we expect, right? But the telecom will say, I'm sorry, you know, I'm a listed company. I do things to add value to my shareholders, and I'm not going to do commercialization of your research. You know, that's not in my M&A, right? The M&A of Egypt Telecom is, there is none in the Egypt Telecom M&A that says that commercialization of public sector research, right? But I don't know now in your country, but many years ago we had this, you know, very naive idea that let's commercialize our public sector research results via large government companies. If you have that idea now, you can keep that idea out of your head. It's not going to work. Okay? No large government companies will do commercialization of research for the sake of doing commercialization of research. Companies do commercial projects because they want to make money. If they cannot make money, they are not going to do it. So, this option of giving our research results to existing companies is fraught with challenges. Especially we are talking about giving it to, or talking to large companies. But there is still possibilities of giving it to SMEs. And this is my point just now, that when we talk about commercialization of research, do not limit ourselves to high tech. Okay? Because it is always inherent in any discourse about commercialization via venture capital, especially, that you are funding high tech. Now, for example, agriculture. There are a lot of technologies developed by our agricultural research institutes. Some of them are very simple. Many of them are not high tech. Therefore, there are some issues here. One, if you form a company to commercialize those research, they will not be VC fundable. Because they are not addressing, they are not in a high growth market. Number two, they are not having an addressable market which is high enough. Number three, sorry to say this, but you know, VCs are sexy, so they say it's not very sexy to go for IPO. From a policy perspective, and we are policymakers, we need to develop commercialization policy, technology development policy, technology transfer policy that addresses the need, the pain of the market. The pain of the market is not only pain faced by high-tech companies. The pain of the market is also solving problems faced by SMEs, which probably do not need high-tech solutions. Therefore, we need to have a policy instrument that addresses the needs of these people besides the high tech. Because a lot of us, we want to have valley everywhere. Malaysia also, once we have Silicon Valley and then we had Biotech Valley and, maybe we want to have Nano Valley, but you beat us because you have C Club. So there is like 200,000 years, in the future.